And good morning, my beautiful America. Welcome back to the All American Book Club, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to bring back to the show. We have a New York Times best-selling relationship expert, Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. We are honored to also talk about the joint book he wrote with his daughter. It's called Beega Gets a Do-Over, a Gigglies adventure about communication. But let me just tell you something really quickly. He has written multiple books, and I have them sitting right here. Yes, we're going to also be talking about light bulb moments in marriage and also speak your mind. We have a communications expert, and I have to tell you something. For all of those who are tuning in from Capitol Hill, you need to read these books. You also need to take a note out of these books as we are wanting to reintroduce kindness, empathy, compassion, and not just through a children's book, but through powerful communication that we can do both in our nation's backyard, Capitol Hill, and the White House. So please help me welcome back to the show, Dr. Eggerichs. Thank you so much for
Oh,
being here.
thank you. What a kind introduction. Thank you.
Um, well, I mean, you make such impact in the public square with the power of communication. You've been doing it for more than 3 decades. So let's do this first. I want to dig into the father-daughter book because I told you before we started recording, I want to buy this for all my military kids in our neighborhood. Tell me about how this started for you.
Well, it's actually based on the communication book, Speak Your Mind. In that book, there are 4 questions, and we've researched this. I have my PhD in family studies, so we've researched certain things. But before I speak, and I applied this years ago and taught my kids on this, is it true? Is it kind?
Mm,
Is it necessary? And is it clear? And those 4 are distinct. They don't bleed over. When we did the statistical analysis, they're distinct. It's stunning. It's like 4 legs on a table. Pull one of
mm,
those out, and your communication is going to be impaired. It's not going to be as effective. And I always wanted to be an effective communicator. And so it has helped me. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it clear? And Joy, my daughter, said, Dad, we need to get this information into the hands of children. You know, you coached my 2 brothers, she said, Jonathan and David, through the years on, hey, before you speak. And many people are shy. So you take these things, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Clear? Then you need to speak up. And so
yes.
we created this children's book because Beega and Duga, the 2 characters, Beega has a big mouth and
Yeah.
he's speaking when he shouldn't. And Duga is this wise friend who is kind of needing to speak up. And that is kind of the backdrop. But these were childhood stories that I told the kids. And my daughter Joy, said, we need to put this, actually, it was Sarah, my wife, need to put it in a book. So that's what we've been doing. We're thrilled with it because it has these concepts. And it's really a child's book for adults as well, but it's
Yes.
fun and it's just something that kids will enjoy, and but it's coaching them along these lines.
When you talk about Biga, I immediately think of many politicians that we see in our square where they could learn a thing or two from a kid's book. That's why I said that at the beginning. I mean, you sit there and say, you know, something you said, think before you speak. I always heard that from my parents growing up. Think before you speak. And even as adults, we need to be mindful of what we're saying, how we're saying it, the intentionality behind it, and how will it come across to the person who's going to receive it. And I want to ask you this. I hadn't thought of this until now, but in this texting generation, in this digital generation, do you believe, and I already know the answer to this, but don't you believe that we are texting communication, whatever we're saying, it can be so misconstrued because you're not hearing the tone, and nor do we know the intentionality of that.
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that is true in marriage as well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we talk, even Sarah and I can be right but wrong at the top of my voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so the negative tone affects the content. But
Mm-hmm.
even if I am just being silly in some text, but it's interpreted through a whole
Yeah.
different grid. And so I think there is a breakdown of communication. And you're exactly right. And I think we all recognize the danger of that. And are
Mhm.
there principles to guide us through that? And I think
Right.
there's a larger issue, even on the political. Do we really believe that if I tell the truth in a kind way, because it's necessary and it's clear, that it's going to be persuasive? And I think we're at a point in the culture where I believe if I'm not totally true, that if I just am really mean-spirited, if I even say things that aren't necessary, but kind of to try to discredit the individual, which has nothing to do with the point, and even if I'm a little nuanced here and suggesting one thing that really
Mhm.
I can deny that I meant by that, that in the
Sure.
long run, I'm going to be politically successful. And I think that's what we're up against because I don't know if we really believe that if I'm a true statesman who
Mhm.
operates over a lifetime in this way, that I will end up influencing the culture. And
Mhm.
I happen to believe that these truths are universal, that they've been proven, and but it takes a decision a person has to make whether they're going to abide by those or not. And I think that requires, as you and I were talking off screen here, resilience and courage.
And I think the resilience and courage we see in some aspects, but then others, I think it's even the be strong and be courageous, aspect of scripture. Are we afraid for what could happen to us in the public square? Are we too shy to speak up for what we believe in and communicate that because of what could happen to us?
Well, and exactly, and I think I've been very encouraged since Charlie Kirk's assassination to see many politicians coming out not just with the fact that they believe in God, but that they believe in Christ, and they've articulated in a very theologically biblical way and
Mhm.
identified with Christ. And in many ways, and you're seeing it with a lot of athletes, they're seeing their platform as an opportunity to share this personal relationship with Christ, how God has forgiven them, that there's hope, that there's purpose, that there's meaning. And this is something that is very refreshing to me. But I think all of us have to come to a point individually where do I really believe that? And
Right.
if so, then how do I proceed on that in a way that is prudent?
Mhm.
And ultimately, for me, as a pastor for many years, I've got to give an account to the Lord. And this is the
Yes.
challenge I extend to people. At the end of the day, it isn't about the person in front of me. It's about Christ standing beyond the person in front of me, and that I do it as to him, which is what he taught. As you've done it to the least of these, you've done it to me. So that Christ is my audience ultimately. But how do we apply that practically in the
Yeah.
Senate or in the Congress or, in the courtroom? These are difficult things. It's not easy, but I happen to believe that there's enough intelligence that people can figure that out if they really want to, and you're a case in point.
Mm. Let me ask you this. Going back to the children's book really quickly, as we are in the heat of summer, but also for back to school, this book highlights for ages 4 to 8, but like we just talked about, adults can really be touched by this. It talks about teaching kindness, empathy, and compassion. And the other day I don't know if you're familiar with the New York Times bestselling author, Debbie Maycomer. Her most recent book focuses on passing it forward, actions of kindness and actions, passing it forward to somebody else who may be in need. And how do we teach? So, my question is, how do we teach empathy? How do we teach compassion when we see, a divided nation in the blue cities for specifically, where we see just this I even see it daily, Emerson, on my show where people will comment and say the most hateful things. Of course, I don't take it personally. I pray for these people because at the end of the day, that's what we're called to do. We're held accountable. But how do we teach these actions? How do we teach this?
Well, I think the larger issue that you're surfacing, and this is the beautiful thing about research, the research on emotional intelligence. This is a
Yes.
big thing that most of us know. And one of the traits of emotional intelligence, a very key trait, is empathy. And I think most of us who are parents, and it can start there, even in some of these blue cities or wherever, I mean, mothers in particular are still mothers, and they
Yes.
want their sons and daughters in the family to be kind to each other. So I don't think those virtues and sentiments have been thrown out the window. They are clearly there. So how do we remind ourselves that
Mhm.
this is the way we want to live personally? This is the way we want to be treated. It's the golden rule. But I think we fear that if we do this, people are going to be taking advantage of us. And I think the challenge for us is to ask ourselves, if I continue to act on these things, will this lead to my harm? And that doesn't mean that you're kind to somebody who has a knife in their hand. I mean,
Right.
it would be a
Right.
matter of just getting away from that, get out of harm's way. But I think
Yeah.
in the general course of living in and out, do we have the confidence that if I remain consistent in doing this, that it's
Hmm.
going to result in more positive things than negative? And in this children's book, we have Beega has a do-over. And the
Hmm.
beautiful thing there, we're talking about you can do it over. You misspeak, you're not kind, or whatever. The power of saying, I'm sorry, will you forgive me? But that's not easy to do, but it brings such healing. I mean, think of it when someone does it toward us. I mean, one of the rules I talk about, I spoke to a group of young people. I said, do you want people to speak what's true to you or lie to you? Do you want people to be kind to you or unkind to you? Do you want people to say what's necessary to you or unnecessary? Do you want
Yes.
them to be clear to you or unclear? Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Everybody knows. Now the question is, will I do toward others what I want done toward me? And am I willing to do it even if there might not be reciprocity?
Yes. So let's talk about a couple other things. I noticed that you worked with the New York Giants. Did I capture that right?
Well, I spoke to the New York Giants. Tom
You did.
Coughlin had me come, and Pat Riley had me come speak to the Miami Heat. Spoke to the troops in Iraq, and have even had some small groups with Congress people. So, we've been so privileged to meet such wonderful folks. Yes.
So let's talk about that and just the journey that God has placed you on to help with further communication for the leader. You have worked, you just said yourself, of meeting with military leaders, meeting with NFL leaders, meeting in those spaces. How have they taken you aside personally, and just the response? How has the response been? Has it been of conviction? Has it been, I want to be a better leader? What has that been like to you to walk in that journey and walk alongside some of the most powerful leaders in our nation?
Well, the message over the years that I've shared is based on my pastoral understanding of Scripture as well as the research that I've done. I believe love and respect are the
Mhm.
two basic ingredients for successful relationships, successful
Yeah.
marriage. But one of the things that Tom Coughlin was engaged with, as well as Pat Riley's way, I've talked over the years based on Ephesians 5:33,
Mhm.
this verse that says husbands must love their wives and wives must respect their husbands. There's no
Mhm.
debate on the first part. There is a
Yeah.
lot of debate on the second part about respecting a man that we can talk about. But I was meditating on that. Plus, Gottman's research at the University of Washington said we now know the two key ingredients for successful marriages, love and respect. And so I knew I was onto something. But then I saw this correlation. When my wife, Sarah, and we've been married over 50 years, when she feels unloved, she doesn't respond positively.
Yeah.
There's a tendency to give me the look, to react negatively because she's hurting as a woman. I understand that. But as a
Mhm.
man, it can look like a look of disgust. It can look like disapproval. It can look like, you're never good enough. You're inadequate. I don't respect you. And then when I feel disrespected, 85% of those who withdraw during a marital conflict is the man, partly because our heartbeats physiologically can get to 99 beats per minute, which is warrior mode. Women can appear to be out of control, but their heartbeats are normal because all it
Mm.
needs to do is say, I'm sorry, will you forgive me? It's, you're so sweet. Well, I was horrible too. I shouldn't have said what I mean, immediately there is going to be this reciprocal,
Yeah.
response because she knows what her aim has been. But a man is different. So when I feel disrespected, though, I tend to withdraw. But that is one of the biggest things that screams to a woman you don't love her.
Yeah.
Disconnection, distance, walking away. It's frightening to her that you're going to abandon her, so she wants to repair quite quickly. Well, my
Mhm.
point is it gave birth to what I call a crazy cycle, and see if this makes sense. Without love, she
Yeah.
reacts without respect.
Right.
Not trying to be, but that's how she
Right.
appears. Without
Right.
respect, he reacts without love. He's not
Yes.
trying to be, that's how he appears. So without love, she reacts without respect. Without respect, he reacts without love. And this baby starts to spin in marriage in
Yeah.
particular. And I ask people, have you ever had a conflict with your spouse when suddenly the issue didn't seem to be the issue? And
Right.
and you see the spirit of your spouse deflate. Well, you're
Yes.
probably stepping on their air hose. She has a love tank connected with his air hose. He has a respect tank connected. But what happens is we dismiss the other because we don't feel vulnerable where they feel vulnerable.
Right.
And furthermore, we weren't trying to be unloving. We weren't
Right.
trying to be disrespectful. So now we defend ourselves. They get more defensive, and it just kind of gets crazy. Does this make sense?
Yes. Oh, completely. You're singing to the choir. Oh, yes. Okay. And then add military components to that, deployment components to that, those who have come back from war components to that. And I see compartmentalization in a lot of our active duty and veterans. And so the divorce rate in the military community is very high
Hmm.
because I see that happening in both men and women where they put it over here and then they come back from a deployment and there's such a disconnect. There's such a disconnect where they've been gone. It's like you have a single parent keeping the home fronts burning while you've been gone for 6 to 9
Right,
months.
right, right.
That's a really difficult thing. And I
Yes,
see it all
yes,
the time. Have you,
yes.
what kind of advice do you give to those who are active duty? Because like you said, you've gone, overseas to see our troops. What is that? What kind of little tidbits that you can give without giving a full counseling session? Because I can't pay you for it,
Right.
but
No, no, I mean it's a huge issue. And I think
yeah,
part of it is you've got the issue itself. So if he comes back in and there's been this division of labor where she's primarily been in charge and now he's
yeah,
coming in and she perceives that as intrusive, she had it kind of together, and now he's kind of making a
mhm,
mess of things.
yeah,
One of the things, there's two things that has to be addressed. Does he have basic goodwill? And does
right,
she have basic goodwill? I
right.
remind people, did you marry Hitler's distant cousin? You know, or is this is this person got basic? And I'm amazed, even though we're mad at each other, we don't like each other. No,
Yeah,
she's got goodwill. He's got goodwill. Okay, so remember, we're allies, not enemies. So
right,
allies don't nuke each other.
right,
Okay,
right,
but
right.
that doesn't mean we like each other right now, and that's okay because there's reasons for being upset. But
Mhm.
secondly, in this case with the crazy cycle, if your exclusion of him, the husband, is interpreted by him as disrespectful and that he's not adequate to do what needs to be done, that goes to the core of the male. Shawnee Feldhahn did research of 400 American males, decision analysts out of Houston, asked the American male many questions, but this was one of them. Would you men rather be left alone and unloved in the world, or would you rather be viewed as inadequate and disrespected by everyone? In Eden, 75% of the men said they'd rather be left alone and unloved in the world. And Shawnee herself said, I can't even imagine that because
I
this
can't.
idea of being abandoned, right? You get it too. But so is that egotistical and narcissistic? No, men serve and die for honor. So
Yes.
what happens if he comes back into the home and you basically send him the message, I don't respect what you're doing right now. I don't even respect you right now. You're not adequate as a father, then he's just going to shut down. So what she has to do is saying, I'm not saying this to dishonor you. You would die for me if I don't kill you first.
Yeah.
And so you're an honorable man. And so I'm not saying this because I'm trying to dish you right now. So can we clarify that? I'm just trying to figure out what's best for everybody involved, you yourself included in that. But can we make sure that we have a conversation about how we're going to have this conversation?
Yeah.
So part of what I would encourage him, remind yourself that you're allies, not enemies, and make sure that she doesn't feel unloved. You
Yeah.
know, don't communicate to her in a negative way that she's, disrespectful. And now you do what every man's going to do. We pull away and punish her to teach her to respect us. And now you're going
Yeah.
to be on the crazy cycle. So the issue then about parenting is out the door. You're two steps removed from that. Does that make
Yeah.
sense, Eden?
Oh, it makes complete sense. I mean, I sit here and say from a biblical standpoint, there's so many powerful sources in the Bible for marriage. And then I've seen so many of, sadly, my friends who have been married and serving have gone separate ways. And it's just devastating to see. It's heartbreaking. And I've seen it for the whole entire time my husband and I have been together. We've seen it over and over and over again. In the final minute we have left, and I want to continue on this conversation because it's so powerful. But what would be a very simple call to action for my audience who's tuning in this morning, saying, you know what, this is something we need to talk about. This is something we need to address, and we just keep being two ships passing in the night. How can what are just what's a simple call to action for
Well,
someone? be
Yeah,
listening.
for me, I want to validate this person's pain and empathize. Like on the crazy cycle, you're feeling unloved or you're feeling disrespected. I get that. That's why I wrote the book Love and Respect. And that's why
Hmm.
you made reference earlier, the new book of the
Yep.
testimonies, light bulb moments of
Yep.
people who are in this pain. Because one of the things people ask me, what would you say is the number one thing that goes on in these relationships? I say honest misunderstanding.
Yeah.
These couples that you know who know the Lord and now they're divorcing, what you say to them, did something immoral go on? And they'll say no. And so it's
Hmm.
just that years of this ongoing crazy cycle,
Hmm.
and they didn't have language to be able to decode what was going on. And so they didn't have a little skill, a little knowledge. And so they came to a point where they concluded they made a mistake. They just now are living as roommates. And what's odd, each of them has an individual relationship with Christ, but they're no longer working as a team. And they sense that God had called them to a destiny, but they realize that's not even around. But what ultimately was the factor there? I believe it's an honest misunderstanding. She looks at the world through pink, he looks at the world through blue. And it comes to a point where each says, I'm not trying to be right. I just know that I am right.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be the normal one, but I just know that I am, which makes me the abnormal one. And
Yeah.
so people are good-hearted, but they're confused. And so they just get de-energized because if I really mattered and you really cared, then the things that I brought up to you, which to me are not that big of a deal, you would have done something. And sometimes you did, but it was short-lived. And why did you go back to doing again what you've done before that I asked you not to do? And when you did what I asked you to do earlier, I was so happy. Do I not matter to you and do you not care? And that's where they land.
That's where they land right there. Okay, so really quickly, where can people? I know we can go to Amazon and get this all day long. And obviously, this one's from last year. Loved this book. And then also, we have the kids' book. But what's the best website for people to connect with you?
Thank you. Loveandrespect.com, LOVEANDRESPECT.com.
Dr. Emerson Eggerichs, thank you so much for being here. You are a delight, and we love what you're doing. Thank you for the journey of communication that you are doing for our families, our military, and our children. God bless you.
Thank you, Eden.